Hello, chat room and Blazor fans. Just waiting for some folks to join the channel. See a couple people jumping on the chat room. We'll get started here in just a second. I want to get too ahead of myself before people all join in. I know it takes a few minutes for everybody to kind of hop on the stream, so we'll get started here in just a sec. Let everybody get spun up and ready to go. I've got lots of cool demos today. Hey, Chris, welcome back to the show, buddy. Got lots of fun stuff. I've got some projects from the community today, so I'm going to cover those community projects in detail. We've got a brand new Telerik release with new bits in it, so we'll be showing some of that off today as well. And I've got some code tips in there too, where I've used some functional programming in a project of mine I thought people might find interesting. So we'll talk about that today as well. All right, we're seeing the viewer count jump up now, so we'll go ahead and get started here. I don't have like news this week. I tried to stay away from news. Hey, Goran, welcome back to the show. And also, as you guys are joining, Lauren's here as well. You'll notice some diamonds next to a few viewers' names. We've had quite a few people that have been frequent viewers to the show, so I kind of gave out some frequent viewer, I don't even know what they're called. I'm kind of new to this Twitch stuff, but they are frequent viewers and they've been given a frequent viewer status. So if you see a little diamond next to your name, it's because you've been contributing to the show and been here quite often. So hopefully you guys enjoy those. So let's get started here today. I've got a project from Mr. Magoo, who's usually in the chat room, that is focused on embedding static libraries in your components. So it does kind of a neat trick that I don't know if we'll be able to go into in detail without Mr. Magoo in the chat room, but he's got a pretty interesting code base that takes and scans your project for these static files. And then when you add those components to your main project, it injects them at runtime. So you don't have to manage all that stuff in the head of your project. And it does some pretty neat tricks using a little JavaScript interop. Not sure how he's getting the files and stuff from the libraries, but it's really neat. It solves a problem right now, especially because the automatic injection of static content from components is kind of broken in this release of Blazor. So when you add components to your main project, like a component library, it's supposed to bring in your CSS and your JavaScript interops that were used to build that component. That doesn't seem to be working right now, and this embedded library component of his actually solves that problem. It also has additional features that aren't available from the vanilla Blazor and Razor components framework, which is it auto-injects. The vanilla framework auto-injects these things when it is working, and it's not there's not a breaking change or a bug or whatever's going on right now, but it doesn't allow you to disable that behavior. And that's something that Mr. Magoo's library does. It allows you to disable certain JavaScript or CSS files that maybe you want to override in your project, so you don't want extra references in there. So you have the ability to turn those things off. So it's really cool. So what I've done is I've gone to his GitHub repository. The embedded library component is available on GitHub as well, but I wanted to grab his GitHub and clone it because he has a sample application in there. So we'll go ahead and get Visual Studio 2019 Preview 3 up and running. And I've got all the latest Razor Components bits and Blazor bits installed. So everything that we've got going on today is going to be on the latest and greatest versions. And let's see, I've got to remember where I put this project when I cloned it. I think I cloned it for the show, so let's see if it's under my folder here, and it should be, yep, there we go, Embedded Library Master. And we can go ahead and open this guy up, and then we'll do some exploring here. So let's see here. Oh, Visual Studio is locking up over my UI for the stream, so I can't see what I'm doing, but I can hear we've got new followers. There we go. It's spinning up now. Electric Havoc, thanks for the bits and the follow. I appreciate that. Welcome to the show. I don't think I've seen you around before, so hopefully you enjoy some Blazor news and demos, and we'll see you back again. Right, so Visual Studio is up and running finally. So here we go. I've been in here dinging around, so let's go ahead and close out all of these tabs I have open. And we'll go ahead and just drop this guy down too, so we can see what the project looks like when we clone it. So again, for those just showing up, I'm on Mr. Magoo's embedded library project that he has up on GitHub, and he's got a sample solution in here. So we have the Razor components example, and he's also got the source code for the Blazor embedded library. Kami, like a clever name. Thanks for the follow. Welcome to the show. So he's got several samples in here. He's got the actual source code for the embedded component for Blazor in here. And all the source code is in here. If you want to look at that, we'll give it a quick glance in a few minutes here once we see what this does. I'm going to go ahead and give it a build. So I'm going to do a Control-Shift-B, do a rebuild here, make sure we got everything up and running, and then we'll go ahead and run this sample in the browser. So let's give this guy a run. And while that's running, I'm going to bump up the font size here on my Visual Studio instance so you guys can see a little better. Get those fonts nice and big for people that are viewing on smaller screens and whatnot. There we go. Let's get some of these panels out of the way as well so we can see lots of the code, because that's what you guys are here for. All right. And what we're running in the browser, and you'll notice that I've got a little bit of an error, site can't be reached. It's because for some reason this project doesn't have a certificate enabled, so it's just going to be running on without HTTPS, and still not getting it up there. Let's double check what's going on with IIS Express. It must be 20 or 5617 is the right local host address. So just got to get the right URL up here in the browser, and then we should be good to go. So this is the demo project, and we'll look at the source for this once we kind of see what all is on this page here. So we've got a hello world, welcome to your new app. We've got a component here that comes from the file, or not really file new project, but the CLI experience. Let's see what we've got here. Is this a raid coming in? A raiding with 93 folks. Thank you, C# Fritz, again for the amazing raid. I can see tons and tons of people join in the chat room now. So welcome everyone. Welcome all 93 of you. And Jeff, I will see you early next week, man. So again, thanks for the raid. To catch up everybody that's just joining, I just started. We're looking at community projects from the Blazor and Razor components community. We've got a lot of really cool projects that have been built from community members, and I wanted to highlight some of these new projects that people are working on. They're contributing things to NuGet and GitHub, and coming up with all kinds of cool tools around this brand new framework that is being experimented on and growing. I'm going to thank some new followers real quick. Developers Garage, Pyraxin, Chlorian. All of you, thank you for following as part of that raid from Jeff. So we're looking at a library that allows you to embed JavaScript and CSS files in your Blazor project. And it's getting these static resources from components. And there's a couple component examples on the demo page. There is a component that comes from the command line file new project experience. Just kind of gives you a sample component to load into your application. Lots of new followers again. Thank you. Let's see, I've got quite a few here. Welsh, Mirando, ENU 235, Turbo, Nautilus, Alyssara, and Ancient Coder. Wow, lots of followers piling in. Again, thank you everybody. So we also have a toast notification, a JavaScript interop for popping up a window, and we have these toast notifications that we can kick off over here. So these are components that have been pulled in from a third-party library into Zap, and this output down here is showing where that content came from. So the static content, the CSS, the JavaScript for these components above is being embedded using this tool that was created by a gentleman that goes by SQL Mr. Magoo online. So let's see here. Jump back to the example, and he's got a debugging experience built into the component as well, so you can toggle this debugging on and it'll output the embedded content directly out to the page that it's on, so you can see where the content is coming from. So let's see. Oh, Mr. Magoo is here. Oh, no, gentlemen, I'm quite awful. So let's see if I've got some comments to catch up on real quick. All those new followers coming in kind of pushed my UI down where I couldn't see your comments. So let's see. So WASM, why not just WASM? I don't know if what that's quite referring to. We're looking. Are we reinventing the wheel? Nope. We are working on both Razor components and WebAssembly with these new frameworks. They're really a new take on things. I wouldn't say we're reinventing any wheels. WebAssembly, I think, is going to be the next big thing to happen to the web. So I'm interested in seeing how these frameworks shake out. Oh, Plorin, thanks. Appreciate that. The DevUp conference is amazing. I love going out there. DevUp is one of my favorite conferences, and they managed to get away with bringing a DeLorean into the keynote last year. So how cool is that? I definitely will be submitting again this year. I've got some really cool presentations that I'd like to give there, so hopefully I get selected for that again. More followers coming in. Again, let's see. CR17R, thanks for following. I am Bimpin Paul, thanks for following. And M Holloway 24. Let's see. I was there, you are not wrong. Oh, okay. Sorry, that's a conversation between the two of you guys. So let's see. We've got Mr. Magoo's project up here. We're checking out these components and where the resources come from. We've got some static CSS files and some JavaScript files down here. So we've got an example, JS interop.js, styles.css, and background PNG, which I don't see that background PNG actually showing in this. Just giving this a quick look. I don't see any console errors, but I also don't see that the background image is showing on the screen. So I'm kind of curious if that is something that's not working or what. Oh, it's only doing CSS and JavaScript, so those static resources aren't coming through yet. So it looks like that'll be a version next feature maybe. So it's listed on here, but it's not actually pulling it through. But we do have these two embedded files here. So let's see how this demo page runs. Let's go ahead and open up the demo page, and that should be under, let's see, it's not going to be on the server. It's going to be on this embedded content client app here. And we are on the index page. And actually, I think the code for this is in, I've looked at this earlier, it should be in the main layout. Yeah. So inside of the layout page, we'll go ahead and move this out of the way. We can see the sample code that's being shown up on the screen. So the body here is where this is a layout. So any page inherits this layout, and then the content for the page gets injected into the body. And then underneath the body of the page, we've got this horizontal rule. So we can see that right about there. It might be hard to see on the stream, but oops, I want to inspect that, but I was trying to highlight it. There's a bar right between, right underneath this toast demo content right here. So everything, this switch embedded tests and down is coming from this part of the code right here. So this is our button that says switch embedded test. And that is going to toggle on and off what usage of this embedded content component is being used. So let's take a look at what each of these is. So if we have the embedded switch on, what we have is the embedded content component, and it is pulling in a list of assemblies. We have debug set to true, and it has a list of blocked CSS files. So if you're just joining the concept of blocking the CSS files, let me kind of explain what's happening with this whole component. In Blazor, you can have third-party component libraries. We have a couple in here. There's this component example that gets pulled into the project. Skimmer1, thanks for following. What does the double @ with stars between do? Absolutely nothing. So that is just a comment section with no comments inside. It watches, yeah, it watches you. I watch you sleep. It doesn't do anything. It's just a comment section. So the concept of this embedded component control is something that Mr. Magoo came up with. And there's a concept in Blazor right now that if you have a third-party component library, it automatically injects static resources like CSS and JavaScript into your project that has a dependency on that library. When the latest releases came out of 0.8 and 0.9, for some reason that got broken, and those embedded resources do not get put in your application. Instead, what you have to do is come to your www root in your index page, and you have to manually come in and list and create a reference to your style sheets and JavaScript, if there is any, for the components you're using in your application. So in here, I'd have something like link with an href to, not hidden, href equals my component.css, something like that. So we'd have several links to several component libraries, style sheets inside of our regular old HTML index page. So these should be auto-injected, and they are not. And we don't want to have to go in and list these out manually. So Mr. Magoo has this embedded component. What embedded component is going to do is look at our list of assemblies we provide, and that list of assemblies is down here. So you can see this is a list of assembly that comes from the reflection namespace, and he's listing out the Blazor component sample component and the toast notification component. And by binding that list here in assemblies, it is going to scan these libraries that are listed down here. It's going to scan those, find the JavaScript and CSS files, and then automatically inject those into our our regular HTML index page. So HTML index page right here, it's going to auto inject about right here the libraries that we've listed in that embedded component, embedded content component. So if we go back to our page and I right click and do inspect, and let's change the orientation of the debug window here so we can see a little better. A new follower again, JTSOM. I don't know how to pronounce that out loud, but welcome to the show. Thanks for following. So if we look through the head of our document, you can see these blob references in here. So we've got a style sheet that has an href of blob, HTTP, localhost, and then it looks like a GUID or some kind of auto-generated key that's in here. And it also has an ID which lists the CSS file that it's actually embedded. Does anybody know if there's a way to bump up the fonts in the debug window here so people can see better? Is that something that is in the settings on Chrome in any fashion? Because I feel like this is small and people are going to have a hard time seeing it. Let's see, settings. Let's see. I wonder if we could control zoom. Let's see. Can the mouse wheel zoom here? Oh, there we go. Sometimes the easiest option is the perfect answer. So Mr. Magoo said it's fun listening to somebody explain your work. Gives you new perspective. That is for certain. I'm glad I could help do that. It's a really cool project, so I'm happy to give it some time to dig in and see how this all works. It's really fun. Yes, thank you for the help in the chat room. That did the trick. Control and scroll did the trick. So we can zoom in here and see that it's injected the style sheet with a blob reference here, and it's also given us the ID of the CSS file that it's injected. So this is injecting our Blazor toast .blazor namespace and the CSS file that came from that. We also see some JavaScript from the interop in here, and that's running this this pop-up that we can click and get a type a message here pop-up. Let's see what else we've got. Another CSS reference in here, and this is the component example up here. This is the dotted line CSS and stuff that's around it. So Mr. Magoo says, I have to admit, I'm amazed those blob things work. I'm not quite sure how you generated those, but we'll take a look in a minute. I'm assuming you've got some magic under the covers of this. So switch embedded test. If I click this button, it's essentially turning off a few of these embedded style sheets, I believe. This is just text that's displayed on the screen, but then we have another component. So when we flip this embedded switch, we go from embedding all of these assemblies to just the Blazor toast and the Blazor component 1. So we're not embedding every single component. And then I don't think there's any, oh yeah, we're blocking also component styles, component sample styles CSS. So we have the ability to block inheritance from CSS files, which is really cool. So let's take a look at the source for just a minute. I don't know if we'll be able to dig in too deep, but we can see that it is a component. So the component is called embedded content, and it inherits from component base. Any component in Blazor inherits from component base, or Razor components as well inherits from component base. I just want to say, Kittis Homestead, thanks for following. Hermana Tria, thanks for following. Thanks for the new followers. Appreciate it. Welcome to the show. These are basically all the properties for the component up here. Anywhere you see, actually inject is going to be where dependency injection is being used. There is some JavaScript behind the scenes of this component, even though it technically could run on WebAssembly or through SignalR. It does require some JavaScript to operate. We'll explain why in a minute. I already know why. I've looked at the source code earlier. We'll see that in just a sec. There's a parameter to toggle debugging. This is kind of a verbose output that we've seen on the screen. And then we have base type. I'm not sure that was used. We've got good commenting and documentation here, though. So we know what all of these are used for. So you can pass one assembly by the type. So there's a way of doing it that way. We can list out the assemblies. That's how we saw it being used in the example. We can create a list of blocked CSS files, which is super handy. Pre-render is something that I believe I saw you had trouble with in, and this is kind of a fix for it, Mr. Magoo. I saw you talking about this in the Gitter chat. So we have to essentially check and make sure we are not in a pre-render state, because during pre-rendering, we do not have access to JavaScript. So I think that is what that comes from. So when the component initializes, I won't go through each individual step, but essentially what I see here is it's getting a reference to all of, it's building up those references to all the assemblies that were listed. And again, it has to check and make sure pre-rendering isn't happening in the application is actually running, because we don't have access to the JavaScript interop during these times. And then if it is something that can be accessed, then we load the embedded resources. And here's where I'm not going to get into every detail. If you want to do that yourself, it is up on GitHub. But there is much Mr. Magoo magic happening, where he's iterating over all of the assemblies. It looks like he's looking for JavaScript and CSS files, and then creating those blobs that are being rendered out in the head of the application. I will go into how those elements get injected into the head, though. I won't dig into how the blobs are created and all that. So let's see, if we scroll down, this is a very creative use of JavaScript interop that I honestly didn't think of before. With the JavaScript interop, usually you're calling JavaScript that is already on the page. In the case of this component, the JavaScript is not necessarily on the page yet. So we have to do something a little bit different. We can't have like an embedded content.js file when the point of the component is to auto-inject this stuff. So what Mr. Magoo is doing here is he's building up that blob, and then instead of calling a JavaScript function that already has been loaded via a JavaScript link in the head of the application, he's using eval and just straight up just executing JavaScript right there on the fly. So it doesn't have a function to run. It just says eval, and it passes a JavaScript function as a string into that eval. So eval's runtime execution of like runtime generated JavaScript. So doing that, he does a document create element, and that creates a link. And then there's some clever code in here to make sure it's injected into the head of the application. It's also, I believe I saw code in there to double check and make sure it's not creating more than one. It's checking to see if it already exists, so we're not getting dupes and things like that. So some cool stuff in there, Mr. Magoo. I suggest that if you want to read through all of the source code, go online. I'll pop a link in the chat room now. I'll also put a link in the show notes for not only, yeah, that's right, no duplicates. I saw that in there. I read through this a little bit yesterday before the show. So very, very cool stuff in there. You can find the source on GitHub. The NuGet package is up on NuGet. So check out the Blazor embedded library so you can embed resources like these in your application and have flexibility on what third-party CSS and JavaScript files get injected into your app. This was really slick. So great work there, Mr. Magoo. I'm going to go on to the next project, and that is a project by Lauren Dorez. And what Lauren has is a project up on GitHub. Mr. Magoo says you could switch themes with that also. That's a pretty cool use. New followers coming in again. Unseen NRG, thanks for following. So the next project here it's less of a component or anything. It's more of an experiment. And Lauren's got a project that goes by the title of Eat, Sleep, Blazor, Repeat. But inside of this project, there is an MVC application that is making use of rendering components in ASP.NET MVC. So this is a feature of Razor components that came with the latest 2 updates. In Preview 2, they added the ability to pre-render Razor components in an MVC app, but then there was no interactivity with it. In this version, the Preview 3 version, you can pre-render those components and then you can begin to interact with those. It spins up its own SignalR instance, and it makes that happen. Young Chiga, thanks for following. Hope I pronounced that right. Let's see, open new project. I've got this project downloaded here as well. Let's see if I can find it. I think, nope, that is not it. Give me 1 sec to find where I've pulled this in. I may have accidentally put it somewhere it does not belong. So let's just double check here. It should be Eat, Sleep, Blazor, Repeat. All right, we might have to pull this back in manually. So let's go ahead and close this solution out. Won't save any changes there. I'm just going to go back to GitHub. I thought I had this somewhere. I'm sure I do. I just don't know where. Let's try open in Visual Studio. Let's see. Nope, it's going to pick the wrong version of Visual Studio. I don't want 2017 open because it just will not work. All these examples have to be ran in Visual Studio 2019 Preview 3. So let's see, I need to get, let me get the URI for this GitHub repo. I'm going to open up my command line. Don't know where I placed this before. We'll go ahead and just grab it. So let's see, I'm going to go cd into repos, or source, all right, source. State has changed. And all right, so I've got a clean directory here. I can just pull this into, let's say git clone, and we'll just get that whole project and bring it in. That's quick and easy. And let's do that. It still wants to default to 2017. We'll have to close this out again. There's a handy little solution for this opening up in 2017 all the time. You just right click up here and do that, and it will open in the right editor. So and the application always wants to open on the wrong monitor, so you guys don't see it spinning up and you just see empty consoles while I wait for access to my screen back. There we go. All right, so we've got a Razor Components app and we've got an MVC application. I want to run the MVC application because this is where all the fun is happening. Let's set this as a startup project and we should be able to run. So let's go ahead and run this. We'll give it a run and then we'll dig in and see what exactly is happening in this demo. So it's got to restore some packages since I just grabbed it from GitHub. It'll take a couple seconds to get the initial page going. And almost there. Get that toolbar out of our way. And I'm not sure what's taking it so long. Let's make sure we don't have any console errors. I've got 2 instances of Visual Studio running. We don't quite need those. Maybe one of those can go away. Maybe that'll give us a little more performance. There we go. All right, so we have a regular ASP.NET Core 3.0 MVC application. So keep that in mind. This is an MVC application. It has normal routes, home, privacy, but it has this Razor Components menu, and we can pull up a Razor Components app that is pre-rendered. So Lauren says there is a README in the app that goes through the steps that it took to make it work. So there is documentation on how this all works. We'll actually take a look at that in a minute. So thanks for pointing that out, Lauren. So if I pull this menu down and I click on these different sections or these different pages, these are actually Razor components inside of this dotted area. These are Razor components. So this is an MVC application with Razor components inside of it. What is really special about this is we can actually interact with those components. The weather component, for example, you saw it fetch data on the fly. The component or the counter component, we can see increment. So let's take a look at the source code for this. I would assume this is under an area. Nope, that's just identity. So we've got views. There it is, Razor components. These are just regular files in here. And notice that we don't have the Razor components syntax in here. We don't have @page directives at the top. We don't have a function block at the bottom. These are just MVC views. Yeah, index probably isn't the best example, but you could see here that we're rendering a counter component here. One thing I'm noticing is that this is lowercase counter, where usually that would be uppercase. So that's kind of interesting. I don't know if that's why that's happening. I don't know if you know. Fetch data looks like it's the same way. When these components are used in the context of Razor components, they have to be capitalized, I believe. So I don't know why they're lowercase here, but they do work. I'll get to the weather kendo in a minute because I don't think, yeah, it says coming soon. We'll talk about that in a minute. This is, oh, there's conflicts. Okay, so that's why they're lowercase. There's some kind of conflict right now. This is part Lauren experimenting with the latest bits, and I think some of these features are included in the latest release. Am I correct? Let me know if I'm wrong. I believe some of this is baked into the framework now. So this is the part that is baked into the framework. And there is an add Razor components service that you can bring into your MVC application. The only thing that is in the framework is the pre-render. Oh, it's non-interactive and you made it work? Oh, wow. Okay. So that is amazing. Really jumped ahead of what's going on in the main main framework then. Yeah, I didn't realize it was that far ahead, so I'm glad I picked these two projects to talk about today. So there's probably a lot more going on here than I realize. This add Razor components, let's see, this is something that is baked in. This is in the components namespace. I guess this is what enables the pre-rendering. So yeah, great work. This part enables the pre-rendering. What Lauren has done is if I were to just do this with the default framework, I would not be able to click this and get interactivity. Lauren has done magic to map these things out to make them work. All right, so we register the Razor components here, and let's see, we map a Razor components hub. This is something that is new with the latest release. The add components is this? Yeah, the add components section is where Lauren's code steps in. So in startup here, we have map component hub, but Lauren has added a way to add the components. And then we're looking at the type, and then let's take a look inside of this, see what's going on here. So this is just going through and getting the names of the different components. I think we were chatting in the chat room, and initially you had to list out individually every component in this section. Is that correct? You had like add component, counter, add component, fetch data, and so on. Yeah, so cool. It's mapping through the assemblies, components, and mapping them to an HTML tag. So that's where the magic's coming in, I guess, where you're mapping these things, and that's where the conflict comes in too. So you're creating a map that says that this counter component goes to that counter class, so it can actually be used and interacted with. Let's see. So let's take a jump into the README, because Lauren said there is a lot going on in the README. So this is how to make use of everything. So the map components hub, We can see where that was added. Let's see here. So you can do add component individually, or you can do add components, and that will automatically loop through using, I would imagine it uses reflection to grab the assembly names and things like that. Add a fake tag, base fake to the head section. So I guess there's something hijacking all the links right now. So you need to kind of specify a special route for these things to work. And then you have to make sure the SignalR JavaScript file is in place. So this part you have to manually add to your project. So I think that's kind of the road that they might head down, is this is going to automatically be injected at some point, I'm assuming. But it looks like right now you have to manually add that. This is pretty, this is really cool stuff. So we can now, with this new addition that Lauren's created, we actually interact with these components after they've pre-rendered. So this is really slick. I like this. I also like that Lauren has added a place for the Kendo UI grid to live. And let's see, where are we pulling the components from? So we can actually go in and add one of these right here on the show. Let's see, we've got components. So here's all the components. They're in a third-party library or an added library here. We've got apps. So this looks like there's nothing getting injected from there. Here's our counter component. We've got fetch data. And then we've got index. So we could add another component in here and make that work. So let's talk about, we'll come back to this. We'll actually see if we can add the Kendo UI bits in there in just a minute. So we'll try to add to this project, and I'll commit it back if we can get that to work. So I'm going to stop this from running for now, and we'll come back to this because we can talk about the new Telerik bits, then we can add them to this after we're done talking about the new bits, and we'll see if we can make that work. How does that sound? So we'll revisit this in a minute. In the meantime, I want to talk about, let's see, on the wrong page here. If we go to Telerik.com, we go to all products, we have a Telerik UI for Blazor. We had it, there it is. We moved it, it was under web. We just recently, as of a few minutes ago maybe, added this Innovations Lab tab. We have some really cool stuff. This VR data viz I won't get into today, but if you're on this page later, check out what we're doing with the HoloLens. It's really cool stuff. So we're going to click on UI for Blazor, and in this page you can download the experimental preview. We just released 0.30 yesterday. Lauren's talking about the new window control is nice. Yeah, we're going to take a look at that in a minute. We'll do a quick experiment with that. So it looks like we need to update the page here. Like I said, we just released this yesterday. We have some more controls now. You can come in, learn a little bit about it, download a preview, and the preview is pretty easy to get going. It's a few short steps to get into that. The steps are in this introduction to Blazor preview article. It tells you all about Blazor, what it is. Number 5 here, experiment with us, gives you all the information on how to get started with Kendo UI for Blazor and set it up and install the preview into NuGet. Because we have a private NuGet server for all of our stuff, so you add that to your package sources and you can get it there. and just the version number needs to be updated on this. We'll get to that soon. It tells you how to install and get running. So Lauren asks, is the GitHub examples updated? Yes, they are, and that is what we're going to look at next. So once you get all of the bits installed, or the package sources installed, you can go onto GitHub, and the GitHub repo is up here. This is the one that Lauren's referring to. And we have updated our demos app. So the demo app is really cool. It's got a good overview of all of our components. I'm going to open up a new instance of Visual Studio. And I've already got that project in here. Let's take a look. This should be it. Again, this wants to load off screen. So while that is loading, I will say that you can grab these examples online. If there's any errors or anything like that, you can file an issue or submit a pull request. So this is an open source example project. The components themselves are not open source, but this demo project is. So we've got the demo project open here. I've made some changes. I'm just going to go into my Git window here and blow out those changes. I was just kind of experimenting with some things earlier, and I don't want to interfere with what we're going to cover on the show. So let's go ahead and kill those changes. Come back to Solution Explorer. And again, I like to do this with all my demos. We'll go ahead and just run it first so we can see what it looks like. Once we see what it looks like, we'll go in and find the pages and components and whatnot and explain what's going on. So let's get that built. I'm going to Control F5 because we're not going to be debugging anything, just so it'll load a little quicker. Here we go. Telerik UI for Blazor. On the left-hand side, we have the button, tab strip. These haven't really changed in the recent version. The grid has lots of new demos. So let's go through the grid and take a look real quick. There's the basic, this is the weather data forecast that you see in the file new project of a normal Blazor app. We can sort data columns. We have templating features. You can add things like images and format unit prices. I'm not sure what character that is right there. I think it was supposed to be a $sign. Not quite sure what that is. Let's take a look at this. What character is that? Interesting. Not sure what choice was made to get that to appear there. We'll maybe look at that later. You can dynamically add and remove columns from a data grid and hide and show columns. We have paging, all the things you'd expect from a data grid. And now we've got these new CRUD ops. So brand new CRUD operations. Is the DLL big? Goran is asking. Let's take a look. So if we go to network, and we refresh this page, we have to do hard, empty cache, reload. We can see it come across. I don't believe our DLL itself is that big. I just saw it go by. And the larger files in this, let me zoom out a little bit. I can't quite see. Come on. There we go. The larger files are going to be the framework itself. And what by framework, I mean the .NET framework itself. The Blazor components are not. So Telerik Blazor client, this is the app. We want one called Kendo Blazor DLL. Don't really need to see the guts of it. It's all binary. And the size is 64K. So I'd say that's pretty small. That's not big at all. 64K, I mean, that's your basic thumbnail image size file. So the Telerik UI for Blazor is kendo.blazor.dll, not a big file. What is a big file? Let's take a look. We can sort these. MS Core libdll, 1.7 meg. Once they figure that guy out, I think we'll be dealing with a lot smaller applications, Goran. I think that's where we stand right now. Great question. So this, we walked through some of these. This one is in-cell editing, so we can actually go through and do inline editing here. We can edit unit prices. We're preventing a value of 3 for some reason. I don't know if that's showing. I'm also getting, let's try typing this in. Yeah, these aren't saving for some reason or another. So looks like there might be some small bugs still. It's not quite operating the way I expect. Something going on there. I'll have to check into that one. We have inline editing. So we can do add product and add a new product right inline. We can also edit. Product 1 edit is canceled. So we're turning some features on and off here. So we're showing that we can block editing for certain items and enable editing for other. So we could enter the value of, say, 9 in there, hit update. That seemed to work perfectly well. This is really cool. Pop-up editing. We can come into a row and we can click edit and we get a nice pop-up editor. So this gives us a form that we can make changes in here and just hit update and save those changes back. We also have the ability to do custom edit forms. I think this is one I actually built on the show one day. We went ahead and put that in the demos as well. And then we can do, let's see, what's custom editor? Oh, custom editing is cool. So if we look at in-cell editing and we click on product, we get just a text box. If we look at the custom editor, click on product, or sorry, click edit, then product, we can put our own UI components in that column. So that one's a drop-down box. So that's custom behavior. So lots of cool stuff. The pop-up is just really amazing. I mean, that is slick. What's cool about the pop-up that is powering this grid editing feature is this is something that you can use. No, we haven't switched to event callback yet because we were in process of building all of these things when that change came through. Is using a normal select. Let's see, we'll jump into that. Freedom to style the Kendo components. I'm assuming that question is, can you customize the style of the components? So 2 questions in here. I'll take them in order. First of all, I think Mr. Magoo, no, we're not using event callback. It wasn't invented when we pushed this release through the system. Lauren, is that normal HTML in the dropdown? Let's take a look. Accidentally opening other instances of Visual Studio. You can ignore those. If we go under grid, that was, wasn't custom form, it is custom editor. Custom editor, CS_HTML. So that is in the editor template, and the editor template is on the column. So we have a grid column on product name, and then the editor template is within that column itself. So we can have inside of a grid column not only an editor template, but we can have a just a regular column template. So if we're not in edit mode, there's that template. When we're in edit mode, we have an editor template, and it's just using a regular HTML component in just regular HTML markup inside of that tag. It could be another component though. Anything could go in here. So this could theoretically be one of the new input components that were released in the latest update. So now to answer Goran's question, do we have freedom to style the components? Like the soon to come combo box? Yeah. Hopefully we have those soon. I'd like to see combo boxes with templating and all that coming. So Goran, you could choose between predefined styles. So we have material theme, bootstrap theme, and our default theme out of the box. I prefer working with the bootstrap theme. It's easiest to theme. And then up here in the corner next to this theme chooser, we also have this link to theme builder. So if I click theme builder, what we can do is we don't have the product listed on here. Any of the modern UI frameworks will give us the right output though. So we could choose Kendo React or ASP.NET Core, any of these, even Angular. These just give you kind of a starting point. They're not really framework dependent. What you see in the output is somewhat framework dependent. But what you get is this nice kind of visual editor for the styles. And what we can do is come in and change the color. And then you'll see all the buttons have changed on that theme. And we have lots of different like default themes you can start with. You have a high contrast, a flat theme, and it changes in real time. Once you do that, you can click on download. You can name it my flat theme, hit OK, and it's going to download a file. You have a couple choices in here. You can grab just the variables in Sass, or you can get the entire CSS file. You can customize it that way. Another thing you can do is reference the Sass directly in your project and customize till your heart's content. You can actually do some very in-depth customization on these. If you go to demos.telerik.com under the ASP.NET Core stack, ASP.NET MVC stack, there is a lot of really in-depth demos that have custom styling. This is a really good one here, Trip Expert. This one, you would not know that you're using Kendo UI if you look at it. So this is a very detailed and highly styled demo that you wouldn't know if you stopped on that site that Kendo UI was powering it in the background. Should combine it with Mr. Magoo's stuff. Yeah, I'd like to see at some point something like this baked into the framework, like Mr. Magoo did. If it's not, I told Mr. Magoo, I said, you should at least give it an attempt to see if they want a pull request. Who knows? All right, so that answers Goran's question. It is completely customizable. Try not to turn this into like a Telerik ad, but I'm just answering questions as they come in. Don't want to save any of these changes. We'll cancel that. Just looking at, so I'm just trying to get that up and running again. I accidentally closed the window out. I wanted to show one more demo on these components from Telerik because I didn't get to two of them yet, and they are really cool. The numeric text box is a better looking version of the input box that we got with the latest release of Razor components. I'm not understanding why I don't have a $sign in this. This is a kind of a new issue. That currency format should be a $sign. It's not a $sign. It's this weird symbol. I don't know if it's my browser doing that or what. So we've got this better looking component here. What's really cool is we can set values on it. We can say this is a percentage. We can have custom formatting. So kilograms is this one. That one's pretty cool. If we look at the app for that, if we go into Solution Explorer, it is under numeric text box. This one that says custom format is cool. For example, if we had like a trip application, like a taxi scheduler or something like that, we could potentially say like person. So you could have the number of people, and you could change the format to something like this. I want the number in the number of people. Change the value to 4 in here, make it an even number. You can change how they step. So we could say step by 1 instead of some kind of decimal value. They also have min-max. So while they don't have the new validation implemented yet, so they won't work with the new validation summary by default, they do have internal validation. Let's see, decimal point 0. So we've kind of customized that one. Let's do a rebuild, and you can see how, I don't know if I have to clean. I'm going to do clean anyway. I was having an issue where I had to clean every rebuild. Let's do Control F5. That should be enough. So the custom one now should count person instead of the number of persons, instead of the number of kilograms or whatever it was before. So you can see how flexible these components are. So numeric text box, index, and then I broke it. I broke it. I don't know what I did. That's what I get for doing things off the cuff. Unhandled rendering exception, cast not valid. I put some kind of value in here that does not belong. Not sure which value it is. I broke it though. I managed to damage it beyond repair. I don't know if it's the 0 decimal places or something like that, but I busted it good. Let's do another build on this one. Let's see if it was the decimal places. You can't really have a decimal point on people, so I was trying to quickly kind of riff on that, and it failed miserably. At least it didn't crash the whole app. It just crashed the component. At least we can say that much. I broke it. I won't try to figure it out right now. You guys get the idea. You can set up customization on these, albeit carefully. But we can customize these to say different things. They can count people or currency or percentage, things like that. Right, let's see. We've got the window component. So the window is nice because it's not your standard dialog box. It's not just a modal dialog. Oh, so sorry, catching up with comments here. They ignored offer of a pull request. Huh. So I guess they're not taking pull requests right now on the project, the Blazor project. So that's interesting. Alt B, yeah, rebuild. It's a pain in the butt. I don't know why it's doing that recently, but it is. But anyway, the new window, I thought we had draggable in here. It doesn't seem like it made it into this release. There might have been a JavaScript necessity. So far, we haven't used any JavaScript yet to build any of our components. That's what we're aiming for, is to build the components out, no JavaScript at all. And then when we finally can't get what we need done, we're going to add interrupts where necessary only. So there's no legacy like jQuery or anything behind these. And I have a feeling we're going to see some wrappers for other products coming out soon. So we can publicly shame them for doing that. No. So these are cool. We can minimize, we can expand. So this is, we can close. This isn't your average dialog box from, say, Bootstrap. Not that the Bootstrap one is bad in any way. This one just has what Bootstrap has and then like a billion more features. Something coming about conventions for file extensions. Not sure what you mean by that, Janescu. One of the things that we're holding off on JavaScript interops for too is the fact that the embedded JavaScript stuff isn't working yet. I don't know if that's what you're alluding to, but we don't know how to include the JavaScript properly without using like CDNs and things like that. So we have a status bar. We have buttons up here. What we're going to find out here in a second is those buttons are customizable. We can add whatever we want up here. We can put forms inside of the pop-up. Right now it doesn't look like we can drag it around, but we can set the size of the pop-up. So we do like small, medium, large. We can set a physical, I don't know if we'd want to do negative there, but we can set physical properties here and say the height and width can be set manually too. Read a really good post regarding Node.js in the front end. Yeah, I'd love to see a link. I think you can paste the link right now. I've turned the chatbot off because it was causing me too many problems on the last show. So go ahead and feel free to paste that link. I'd love to bookmark that. So we've got some flexibility here. We've got these actions. Remember I said the buttons up here are customizable. So we can have actions up here as well. So you can see I thought the form was disabled. You can click edit. We probably should toggle enable disabled state in there. You can say put some values in there and then hit a save button and capture the events on that. Dev2 JavaScript free front end. Thank you, Goran. So I will have to give this a read. This is a pretty new read here. I'm going to go ahead and bookmark this for later. And I will check. Actually, this is a better bookmark system for me. Drop this in my Trello. I have a daily chores thing that I do, and I'll read through that. Thank you, Goran. So we have the ability to customize these buttons up at the top. They don't have to just be expand and close and those things. And then we can position. So we have the building blocks for being able to drag this around. We can set a top and a left position of this, so it's absolutely positioned within the container, and we also have the ability to center it, which is awesome, because for some reason centering things in CSS is just impossible. So this is taken care of for you just by setting some values in the property. I'm just working on drag and drop. I don't think there's much you can do without some JavaScript, but it doesn't have to be interop if you don't want a tiny bit of inline JavaScript. I assume you're talking about those eval magic strings that you put in there. Don't know if that's the approach that they're going to take. I can't say that I know too much about what happened. I thought it was in the release, but it doesn't seem to have made it. So what I want to show real quick before we close out the Telerik demos, unless anybody wants to see something in particular with these, I love demoing our stuff, but I don't want people to assume this is like the Telerik only show, because that's not what the intention is here. Just so happens we had a brand new release along with the latest bits, and there's some cool stuff in here. So one thing you might not see is let's do this. Let's go to Bootstrap. Let's do a quick comparison. And this is something I'll be adding to our demos. I don't know why we didn't include it in our demos, because I think this is what most people will kind of gravitate to. So in Bootstrap, we have modals. launch modal. There we go. Boom. This is what I think people are looking for, is this modal experience where the background of your app is grayed out and you have this dialog box that is in front of your content. I think that's what a lot of people are probably going to look for. That's a very common UI behavior. And if we look at what is on the screen here, that is not it, right? So what we can do, let's just grab, let's do the index page. Index page is pretty simple. I'm going to close this one out and grab the window index page. And you can see this is the makeup of the dialog box. We have set width and height. It is centered by default, and it is visible, which is set to true. That's very visible, is a very good property to have access to. We also have this minimize and close. I'm going to take away minimize. I'm going to take away maximize. I'm just going to leave close in there. Leave these form fields in. And what I am going to do is I'm going to create a function. So we'll say functions, and then I want to set a value. And I will call this, it's going to be a Boolean value, window visible equals true. I'm going to set that true by default. And we also need a button. So let's do a button. I'll go ahead and use a Kendo button since we are using Kendo UI. And I'll show one more new feature while we're in here. Thanks for the tip, Mr. Magoo. We'll stop propagation is probably something that I can report back to the team, see if they're having a problem with. Zoom it says yes. I have a class with no propagation controls. I don't know if it's a good idea, but it makes it easier to write. So we're going to put a button on the page. And I'm going to give the button an icon. So this is a really simple new feature. This is something I actually created for Telerik UI for Blazor. So I created this, it's in the library. So it's something I committed to our actual product. We used to put magic strings in here. You can still put a magic string. You could say close. If you do any refactoring though, you know how magic strings are. Another thing is there are over 200 different icons in our icon system within Kendo UI. So they're kind of hard to remember. Close, maybe not so much, but what we can do is say icon name here. And when I hit dot, I get IntelliSense. And we have all of our icon names inside of IntelliSense. So let's just say close. What's cool is if I remembered close as a string, that's awesome. But I might not have realized there are other versions of close. There's an outlined version. There's a circle version. Let's go ahead and grab the circle one just to see what it looks like. The editors froze up. There we go. So I can say close circle, and then inside of my button, I need a name, so we'll say close. So with some context to this as well. So we have an icon and the word close. We need a on-click event. So I think this is actually a breaking change. It used to be on button click, now it's on click. So you can do a modal without JS. It's all in a blog post. Yep, and this Kendo UI modal does no JavaScript as well. So let's do on click. I need a function. Actually, I'm not even going to write an actual function in the functions block. I'm just going to go right here and do a little bit of magic and just say throw a anonymous function here into window visible equal, or sorry, I meant to do open. This is supposed to be open because we're going to close the, we could close and open, but if it's modal, we're not going to be able to access it. So we could open, there's a folder open. let's see, what kind of icon here? Open, hyperlink open, folder open. Let's just throw folder open in there, just to give us something to look at. The word needs to be open. Dialogue. Oh man, one of those days, huh? So we're going to set that back to true, because what happens is when we hit close, it's going to toggle this value automatically to false, and we're bound to it. Window visible. So that should be our binding for it. Now we should be able to toggle that. So let's do clean here and Control F5. I'll make an update to our samples in the next couple weeks here. Make sure this demo gets pushed, because I think this is what people are really after, as an out-of-the-box experience, is the ability to have a modal window. So we have this open dialog. If I close it, click open, you can see it's toggling that window. So how do we do a modal, right? We've got the ability to close and open. Well, we can just come in here and say modal equals true. How about that? That's simple enough. Let's rebuild the app. I keep cleaning. I don't know if it's necessary, but I'm going to do it anyway. We can rebuild this when we come back. We should now have a modal experience. Go to Window, Index, boom. There we go. Everything's grayed out now. And I can't do anything with the app until I close that button. So I can do open, I can do close. So what if you don't want that close button? You could actually wire up an internal button here as well. Let's just go ahead and copy this one. Inside of the content, I can just say close, and then set this to false, and say close dialog. So if you wanted to add your own, this could be an event too. You could trigger an event to open and close. So the event, whatever event you're capturing off the system, all it does is sets window visible to either open or close, and you've got your modal experience. So do a clean, Control F5, and we're good to go. So once we have draggable in there, that'll be the full window experience. So this goes above and beyond just the dialogue. So we have open, close in multiple different ways. We can set dimensions. We can do full screen. We can minimize. We can have custom toolbars at the top. We can do custom positioning. So all kinds of really neat stuff with our window component that you can do. So I'm really happy to see that get built and be included. And that is what powers our grid pop-up editor as well. So that's the same experience that you've got there. And you can easily create these update and cancel buttons with that new button and icon helper. You can also do icons just straight out of the box as well. So you can include an icon in a button because it has an icon field, but we also have Kendo icon now, and you can say icon name equals at icon name, and then you can say folder open or whatever you'd like. And then this is actually a self-closing tag that you can use. That will actually render an icon as well. So there's other ways to access those icons. So really, really good release. We've got, in just a month, we've got a couple brand new features and controls. Really good stuff. So let's go back to Lauren's example, see if we can add that Kendo grid to Lauren's app. Let's see, we need to get this Visual Studio instance. I'm going to move this other one off screen. I'll keep this open in case we need it for reference, or if anybody has any questions about Telerik UI for Blazor before the show's over. We don't need to keep that open. So we can come back to Lauren's app. In Lauren's app, there's a space for a Kendo widget where Lauren has put coming soon. So Lauren, let's see if we can hack this in. I don't think we have any dependencies in here yet. NuGet. Yeah, so we don't have the Telerik UI in here yet. So we need to add the Telerik UI. So what we're going to do is come in to dependencies, do manage NuGet packages. First thing we need to do is grab that library. So I'm going to go to telerik.com for my package source and browse for Blazor. And we should see 030 is in here. And you can see it is compatible with Blazor 09 Preview 3. And we'll go ahead and install that. So it's grabbing that off of our NuGet feed. Go ahead and accept that. And now we have the libraries in our app. We need to set up a using statement. And I'm assuming the dependencies will be necessary in both of these. Or wait, no. Where are, oh yeah, components. Yeah, so we need the dependencies in both of these. We could have managed this at the top level too. I can just come up to solution, do manage packages for solution, and let's see, where's Blazor? In Telerik UI for Blazor should be on this list, and then we can just say it needs to be in MVC app. And it needs to be in the shared. Okay, so it needs to be in shared. If we put it in the Razor Components app, we would need it in there. We're not going to do that. We'll just hit install and make sure it's in both of these. So we want it in the MVC, and we want it there. So we need to add it. Let me move that out of the way. We need to add it in here first. So MVC pulls the components from shared. So we need to add a component in here. So we need to do new item. Let's do a Razor view. ASP.NET Core Razor view. That'll work. And we can create a Kendo forecast. Or Kendo weather wasn't. Razor. I have to get used to that, typing Razor in there. I wanted to do CS/HTML, which I think both work, but this is the new convention. Might as well get used to it. So we create a new component here. We need to, I guess we can do using statements directly here. So we say using, I know we need to do add tag helper. So I guess add tag helper is going to come in to the other project. So we're good there. We need to do using kendo.blazor. And then now that we have our, we're not going to get IntelliSense without, yeah, I don't know if we're going to get IntelliSense for this though. So Kendo grid. Don't know how I'm going to get IntelliSense without a reference like that, though. Let's see if adding the using is enough. I don't think it is. I think add tag helper is what gets us our IntelliSense. So, oh no, that did. No, that's giving us our Kendo weather component that we're creating. What I'm going to do is go to the other project just to make this quicker and easier. And I'm going to reference a grid from the other project, and it should just work. Let's see, index, I think has, so we do have page routes in here as well. So I need to make sure that we have our page routes. So don't know what the page route is for that. If we have counter, we have fetch data. I guess we can call it Kendo weather, like that. Don't think I need that. What about HTTP client? I guess I need a using statement for that one in here, because, well, let's see what fetch weather did. Okay, that's right. So we're not going to grab that over HTTP. Instead, we're going to inject the service of weather forecast right here. And we need to grab the namespace for it from here. Let's eliminate the need for a template for now, just to avoid any confusion, and make it a little smaller. I don't know what logger's doing. I don't need that. I'm going to go back to fetch data and steal some more code. I'm just going to get the way that weather forecast is bound there. And I'll leave height and grid data. We could use that, but I'm gonna I'll just use grid data instead. So there we go. That should be enough. I've got a property called grid data that's going to await the weather forecast service on initialization, and then we've set a height. I also want to do this just because I've seen this cause a problem before, and say if grid data is null. Is that how we're doing it on fetch data? Yeah, if it's null, we'll throw a loading message. Else, we want to go ahead and display that Kendo grid like that. So that, I believe, will do the trick. That should be everything that we need. Now, we do have a need for CSS and JavaScript. So I'm going to go ahead and add that to the MVC project. And I also need to do, so we don't need to add the page route on that. So it's not going to even use that, but we'll keep it there. It looks like it doesn't hurt anything. I need to add the CSS for Kendo UI, and there's no JavaScript. So just that in the imports, view imports. So add tag helper. It's going to be star Kendo Blazor, like that. That should do that. So make sure I got that dependency in here. Yeah, Telerik UI for Blazor, Kendo Blazor. Oh, you don't need that add tag helper at all. Okay, so we don't need that. And then we need the CSS files. So there's a couple ways to do the CSS. Let's see, let's do something really simple. We can grab actually a CDN. I can get it here, or I could also, I like to grab the CDN from the React and Angular side of things. Is actually a newer CDN, so I like to grab those. Let's see, docs and support. I'm going to grab it from a demo. It's just much easier for me to find. Let's open this in StackBlitz. It's much easier for me to find the CSS, the CDN for the CSS, unless we're pulling it. It's been a little while since I've looked at these. Yeah, so the CDN, or maybe I'm wrong. I thought these used our CDN for it. Ah, heck, I'll use libman. I know there's, the CDN's actually pretty easy to use. It's remembering which versions and stuff that I'm not familiar with, because I normally just embed them in the project. So we can have Kendo common. We need to list out our different versions of material and whatnot. And I don't have that available to me right now. So let's go ahead and let's use libman. Whoops. Accidentally dragged something there. So we'll add libman here. Let's say add client-side library. And we need to add our CSS files. So add, let's do unpackage. It's going to be at progress. Oh, boy, that's fun. So even in here, it was trying to search through the Solution Explorer, so I had focus on the wrong thing. And I can't remember the CDN off top, or the unpackage path off the top of my head either. Let's go to Telerik.com. I know I have it in my blog post. UI for Blazor. Right here, I can get the libman info I need. So libman needs, there we go. Grab these paths. Cancel that dialog. I can't cancel the dialog. Oh, just all of Visual Studio just crash? No, there it is. That was weird. It closed it, but it didn't kill it. Manage client-side libraries. Paste it in. Copy-paste coding works the best, right? Trying to do things from memory, not so much. Restore client-side libraries. And that should put the CSS in here. Kendo themes. Now I have all three. So that works for me. We need the index page, or the root. We need the root template. So this is going to be our view. Magoo's right. Like, the libman dialog is terrible. It does look like it was written by the VB6 team or VBA team. So we need the view import, not view import, view start layout. We need shared layout. It's been a while since I've been in there. So the layout, and we can go and grab the Bootstrap theme, which should match what is being used by the app. You just drag and drop it in there and it works. So we'll put that in there. So now I assume the next step would be to go to the views folder, Razor components, weather kendo, which has been outlined for us. Let's see what's in weather. So we just need to add a wrapper. Here, I'll copy all of this and paste that in. And instead of fetch data, it's going to be kendo weather all lowercase is what Lauren is saying. So that matches kendo weather, kendo weather. I think this is all I need, right? Please correct me if I'm wrong. I'll do a rebuild. I think I've got all the bits that I need. And who is joining the show? Codebase Alpha, thanks for joining. Like the name, by the way. Very readable and clever. Get a lot of ones that I can't read. Looks like I might have missed a few too. S&B, thanks for following. I've seen you in chat rooms on other shows. I think you might be in the dev chatter from time to time. Twisted Aphid, thanks for following. And I think that's that catches me up on followers. Thanks guys for joining the show. Let's go ahead and run this app. And see if we get our kendo component inside of an MVC application. So that'd be really cool to see. Again, this takes a while to load. This is not typical of a MVC app to load this long. I don't know if my machine is just dragging along. So something is not working. I messed something up somewhere. Let's see. Console tells me nothing, so I have a silent error somewhere. Very interesting. Everything there looks good. I don't think there's much I could mess up on that page. I wonder if I compiled the entire app for one. So I'm not sure if I compiled all of the bits I needed to compile. Oh, welcome Will Bennett too. I didn't see you there. All right, so let's see. I've got the fields right, I believe. That should be the right names. And then let's just make sure I didn't compile everything. Let's do a clean solution. Yes, I need to stop debugging. Just make sure I've got all my builds right. Do a rebuild solution. Solution level, make sure everything is compiling correctly. I think I know what it might be too. No, I have my using statement on the actual weather components. That can't be it either. I was thinking the component might the reference might not be there. Let's do a full run. This is like very experimental stuff. I'm experimenting on top of a experiment from a frequent guest to the show and chatter in the Gitter chat room, Lauren. So this is Lauren's project, and I'm just kind of hacking on it and trying to add the Kendo grid to this MVC application. So the MVC app is actually using Razor components. And what's really cool is it's pulling in Razor components and you can interact with them within an MVC application. This is very forward-thinking, but the weather component works. Kendo weather, not so much. Not sure. If it would give me an error, it'd be nice, but it's not. It's just taking a dive. I think I see an error, a problem anyway. I did not set a height. I don't know if I need to set one by default. We'll try that. So it was trying to bind a height that might have been 0 or null. So maybe that had something to do with it. Let's do a full rebuild again. One bad part about this is I'm not getting any IntelliSense or compiler errors or any help. So I'm kind of flying blind, feels like. So we'll see if we can get this going or not. So it's loading up again. And let's see what we get. Let's try Weather Kendo one more time. Nope. Failed miserably. So, what could we do to try to troubleshoot this? So we've got the namespace up here. We've got the using statement. We've set our grid height. Let me check the reference app here. So it is doing on async, setting the height. The height is specified correctly. I don't see what is possibly wrong here now. Let's just take this out of the equation and drop that height. Just put 500 straight in here. I don't think that's the issue though. If it's anything, it's going to be a column name, which I think the column names are right. I've got date, temperature, and C, and summary. That should be the proper names. If I look at fetch data, let's see what these are. Date, temperature, summary. So those seem to be correct. We can double check these. We can use a name of here. Name of weather forecast date. We can use that instead. And IntelliSense is going nuts on me and auto-completing things I don't want it to. So that the date looks fine. Let's go ahead and I'm going to eliminate all the columns except for that one for now. See if that helps. Let me make sure the dependency is in here. NuGet, yeah, Telerik UI for Blazor is in there. And the using statement is here in the component itself. Is there any need, Lauren, to have a using statement anywhere else on the MVC side? Mr. Magoo was fun, man. Nice work on the embedded stuff. Take care, buddy. All right, so this probably isn't going to work today. It doesn't look like I'm able to get this going. Not quite sure what's happened, and we don't have any output from... you know what? I'm going to try this just for kicks before I close this out and move on to the next bits. And I want to show a project that I pushed up to GitHub. Thanks, Lauren. I'd love to see this working. I'm going to try one more thing before I move on. I'm just going to add a using statement here just in case it's unable to find that reference for some reason. I have a feeling like that may have something to do with it. The other components don't have additional references in them. Well, I guess maybe they do. There's a service being injected and stuff like that. That's kind of strange. So we'll give it one last try, and then I'll open up one final example. We're starting to hit the 2-hour max here. People seem to like the show to be 1 hour to 2 hours. don't want to run over to a clock too far. We also got kids coming home from school and all that fun stuff making noise in the background. So tag helper component screen. Not quite sure what you mean. That didn't work. Add tag helper. We can try that. We can try it there. Add tag helper under the using. So right on this here. That lit that up quick. Let's try clean and run. This will be our last go at this and see if that does the trick. Not sure if I left that add tag helper in the app. Eek. At least if it threw an error, it'd be nice. At least I know it's thinking of me. Slow to load. I'm not sure if this slow loading is something to do with the Razor components being used in this or not. Never seen an MVC app really take that long. Did notice something just happened here. So this, I could have swore this window was bigger last time. This outline seemed like it was bigger. So I think we broke it more than it already was broken. Let's go ahead and close that one out. We'll have to revisit that one on next show. I'm going to go ahead and close the app for now. And Lauren, great work on that. Good job getting the existing components and stuff working on it. Yeah, it'll give you something to play with later today. That was my intentions all along. No, it would have been cool to see it work like out of the box, but experiments on top of experiments, sometimes they just don't work out right. So it's all good. So let's do another project before we all go. This is a project of mine. Let's see here. It's not in my list. This new list on GitHub is really cool. This little search bar that they've added up here, it kind of keeps like your recent projects in there. I don't see the one I'm looking for in it, so I'm going to go back to my home page, and it should be in here somewhere. I just pushed this last night, so it should be taxi. There we go. This is a Razor Components app. It's called Taxi Fare Components. Boom. If you guys want to look at it, this is a Razor Components and machine learning mashup. So it's using ml.net as a service on a Razor Components app. It has everything from the training model to the service built into the project file. So let's go ahead and open that up. I've got Visual Studio open here. I'm going to close this solution. And I have my taxi fare prediction app here. I won't go into too much detail. I just want to kind of touch on it a little bit to show. We actually did this on an entire show once. That's why I don't want to go over it too much unless folks have questions. I've got the project open. Let me collapse everything down. This is a much simpler implementation than the last one that I built that's similar to this. So taxi fare prediction, the root project, is a console application. Program CS is a console app. This is a machine learning trainer. So this program, when you run it, will grab two CSV files and load taxi fare data into the machine learning model. It will build, train, and evaluate, and save. That's a lot of things going on in one function. I didn't write all this code, so it needs probably to be refactored just a little bit. That sounds like a lot of concerns being handled in one spot. But if we go to build, train, evaluate, and save model, it's exactly what it does. It does let's see, build, evaluate, and train. There it is. The first thing it does, it loads in the 2 CSV files, and it does a little bit of data cleaning on them. So it will it has this upper and lower bound. So it takes any trips out of the equation that are below 1 or above 150 in fair amount. So any fares that were less than 1, which sound like bogus fares to me, why would you have a trip that's less than $1 unless you're going corner to corner? I think there's probably a base fee that's more than that anyway. Upper bound is 150, so I guess you're going from New York to, I don't know, maybe going to another nearby city or something for $150 or more. So it takes those off the data set. Then it loads the training set into a model, and it trains the model. It then evaluates the model. So machine learning, if you haven't done it before, has kind of like a somewhat of a feel of, I want to say, unit testing. So you're going to train the model, then you're going to test it, and then if it doesn't give you the predictions you're expecting, you're going to do some tweaks, train it again, test it again. You kind of have that same red-green refactor type of a cycle you go through. So this is going to evaluate. Once it evaluates it, it will save it to a zip file. The trained model is a binary file that it knows how to do all the work. It's not as processor intensive as the training process is. So once you've trained the model, you can run data through it very quickly. That's what the zip file is. So it saves that file to disk. It also does some testing and whatnot. We'll run this and see what it looks like. So let's do taxi fare prediction. Let's run this. I have some fun bits in here that I think a few people in the chat room will enjoy. I know like Goran, Lauren, a few of the others here like to see some creative code bits. And love to hear your feedback on some of the style of coding that's done on the client side of this. So that prediction model just ran. The idea of a regression model is to try to get these data points as close to this line as possible. So if you were to draw a vertical line up or down from one of these data points, that distance, the shorter the distance, the better to this line. That's what we're trying to do. This is the distribution of our the accuracy of our predictions. So that's what happens when you run the console application. You get this graphical output. I didn't build this part. This is part of the ML.NET documentation this project came out of. I did a little refactoring on it, fixed some bugs that they had, and reported that back to the ML.NET team. They're going to fix those bugs and get this in ship-shape condition for everybody. So this gives you like the R-squared score and stuff like that. These are used to kind of judge the efficiency of the machine learning model. And then it runs through and does some predictions to show how accurate the predictions are. They're not too bad, really. There's a few that are off by $1 or $2, which, if you're thinking in the grand scheme of things, this is a taxi fare prediction. This isn't like life or death. $2 on a taxi fare prediction of $15 is not a big deal. So if you're going to be upset by $1.20 off on your prediction, then you haven't been in New York long enough. So they're within about $1. Some of these are really close. So it looks like a pretty good training model. So we've got pretty good accuracy on our predictions. So the regression model set up very nicely. So we have our model built. The model is saved into a folder. Sorry if I'm going kind of fast too. This is, we're running long in the show. I just want to kind of give you guys a glimpse of what this is. So if you want to go check it out, you can. I'm going to go into the folder view for this. There's a hidden folder in the project here that is very necessary to know what it is. So in our taxi fare prediction folder, this is where the console application lives. It will deposit this taxi fare model.zip file into this folder. This is your taxi fare prediction model, or your trained model for doing predictions. That is very necessary for the next step, which is to create a service that loads this model and runs data through it and gives us an output. So let's take a look at that now that we know where the file is. We have another project here called Taxi Fare Prediction Service. We'll open that up. It has something called data structures in it. Data structures is a definition of the ins and outs. So these taxi trip is in all of the inputs that it reads from the CSV file. This is the data structure, the plain old class object structure of the data points that the model is trained on. We need these to feed new trips into the trained model once it's trained. The columns they correspond to the training portion when we're reading the data from a data source. Those aren't used during prediction, just the file name or the field names are. So we have our class object taxi trip. We also have a label for our score. This is what it's aiming to predict, is the fare amount. And we have a test trip that we can call on. We want to just test one call to the prediction model out. Moneyed dough done. I hope I pronounced that right. Thanks. Oh, thank you. Appreciate the compliments there. I'm glad you think it's good content. Really appreciate it. So that's our data structure for the machine learning model. That's in our services. Because it's shared both on the prediction service and it will be on the front end as well. We have an interface for our service. Let's look at the service first. So the service uses the taxi fare prediction service interface. And the service has a property, a read-only property called model path. So we're going to give it the path to that zip file I showed you earlier. So that's why I wanted to show you where the zip file was. We're going to give it the model path. That's a constructor that's set at the constructor level. So when we new up a taxi fare prediction service, we're going to give it that model path. Once we new this guy up, we can call predict fare, which is a method on the service, and pass in a taxi trip. Oh yes, Lauren, perfect answer. That's what we missed. I bet that'll do the trick. We forgot the services add Kendo Blazor. Nice. So we can call taxi or predict fare and pass in a trip, and the taxi fare service will then spit out a prediction. The prediction will have a fare amount inside of that prediction that we can grab. What this method basically does, it sets up an ML context, which is something from the machine learning library. You can see Microsoft.ml ML context. This is the machine learning library from ml.net. We're going to load through a file stream, that zip file, and then we're going to call the trained model and say, create a prediction that gives me a taxi fare prediction off of a taxi trip. So that's what this does internally, and it returns this result from predict using the taxi trip we passed in. So it's going to call predict, return the results back. So that's what the service does. The service is actually used in the building and testing of the model. And now we have the service in a DLL format, so we can reference it in a Razor Components application. So let's look at the Razor Components app. I'm going to do a little tab bankruptcy here, close all those out. This taxi fare predictions.webrc stands for Web Razor Components. It's a Razor Components app. It has in its page just an index page. I've wiped out kind of the boilerplate stuff, fetch data and counter component. And we have an index page that has quite a bit of markup on it. We'll see what this does in just a sec. And I have a class called taxi trip form. This is the kind of view model for my form, okay? I do have a data object in data services here, or data structures here, called taxi trip. It's not quite a one-to-one mapped versus what's going to be in the UI. So I have this view model, taxi trip form instead. It has some of the same fields, but it has some additional stuff as well. We'll take a look at what those things are. So I'm going to switch this up a little bit, and instead of running the model, I'm going to run the client, the web client. I'm going to hit run so we can see what this looks like. It's not the prettiest app in the world. I didn't get any real design or anything on it. It's just a simple form. It's using some of the latest Razor Components bits though, like validation and the edit form and stuff like that. So it's a pretty cool little example. And you can see that I don't have any other pages in here. It just loads up a taxi fare prediction. Something is just grinding away on my machine here. Let me see if I can find any stray windows open or anything. Nothing else going on. I'm not sure where that that lag is coming from. Let's see. Oh, it is OneDrive. Found you. Close OneDrive. I don't know what OneDrive is up to, but it is syncing a ton of files. That should free up some CPU time. All right, so you can see it says estimated fare. It hasn't estimated anything yet. If I try to submit this, boom, I get a big validation error. So it says the field trip distance must be between 0.1 and 15. So it only goes up to 15 miles. We have to have a proper passenger count. We have to tell the model what kind of payment we're going to use, what vendor, and what rate code. So all of these fields are invalid right now. So we can tick this up to 1 passenger. We can say the trip distance is going to be 2 miles. We can give it a rate code. These, I haven't quite done the right discovery on the rate codes, but I believe these are like time of day type of things. So this would be like morning commute, rush hour, middle of the day type of stuff. I don't know which ones correspond to what yet. So we'll just choose rate code 1. We have payment type, cash and credit. That can have influence on what your estimated fare is. And then we have 2 fictitious vendors here. We have Mellow Cab. Don't know who I'm alluding to there. And then we have Uptown Limo. We can choose either one of those. And then we can hit submit. And then we get a fare of $9.26 to travel 2 miles with 1 passenger with a cash payment. So that is doing a machine learning prediction to get that number. If we want to play around with this, we could change the rate code. I believe that some of the higher ones are during like rush hour. So you can see it goes up to $28 during rush hour. We could change the distance. Again, we're on rush hour. We could say we need to go another half a mile, and it ticks up just a little tiny bit. We could add a passenger to it. For some odd reason, it went down 4 cents. It's not perfect. We could change vendors, and Mellow Cab is definitely a little more expensive. I might change these vendors around. I think Uptown Limo sounds fancier. Anyhow, you get the idea. So let's see how the form is built. Remember, we have taxi prediction. We have kind of a form that sits behind it as well. So we have this form, and it's using data annotations to do all of the validation. So things like trip distance are required. We can only have a range between 0.1 and 15. Cabs don't go any further than 15 miles in this demo. The passenger count only goes up to 4. So we can only have 4 passengers in the vehicle at one time. This is where things kind of differ from the machine learning model inputs and a web form input. So a web form input, you're going to have a selected payment method. And then you're also going to have different payment methods. So we need to supply those. I chose to use a dictionary. I thought that was an easy way to represent these. So cash corresponds to CSH, which is what the machine learning model understands as cash, because that is what is in the CSV file that it learned from. And the same with credit. So the value that's hidden behind there is CRD. Same thing with the cab services. They actually don't have real names. It's CMT and VTS. Don't know what those things ever stood for. So I got to name those. I just decided to pick 2 kind of random names off the top of my head and supply those as the keys for these values. So these are just dictionaries, and we bind these to select lists. Same thing with rate codes. It's just a array of numbers. Nothing else really interesting in here, except for the fact that we have to have these 3 sets of lists of values to bind to the selected items in the select lists. So it's not really a one-to-one object-to-object between a trip form and a taxi trip. So just keep that in mind. On the index page, I'm using something called extensions. I'll explain in a minute. We do use our data structures because we eventually have to map our form back into the taxi trip machine learning data structure. I'm using system.globalization to get the right monetary value to show up. And then the taxi fare prediction service, I'm referencing that just to make the namespaces a little shorter. And I'm injecting that taxi service. So if we look at our startup, you'll see I have under configure services, I set the model path, and I'm going to my directory and looking for ML models, taxi fare model zip that I generated from the machine learning model. That is actually pulled into my web project through libman. This is possibly something that people don't know about libman, is you can direct it to your file system as well as online resources. And I'm just saying that the library is in a relative path, which is my console applications path. And I'm going to take that zip file and I'm going to put it under a local path. So libman does all the heavy lifting for me. When I build the application, I can restore that zip file. So if I update my machine learning model, it will automatically update on my application as well. So there's that. Let's move on to the markup. So I've just got a form here, and I'm using the brand new bits from the latest release. If you want to call it Blazor 09 or Razor Components Preview 3, whatever name you use, that's the latest and greatest stuff. So I've got a form that binds to a trip value, which is a taxi trip form. And then I'm going to handle a successful valid submit. And then these are just inputs. I use name of in here. I like name of. If I refactor any of this, I don't have to go back and rename things. So label for, name of, and then the name of the input is also using that same name of. So you can see it's passenger count is the name of the control. So if you click on the label, it will focus on the proper input. Nice little trick in there. The inputs, there wasn't really good documentation. I think, Lauren, you pointed me to the correct documentation for this. It was kind of hidden. But the inputs in Blazor, you do input select, and then you bind to the selected value. There's like selected rate code, payment method, for example. And then you kind of iterate over your options. So there's a select kind of placeholder value. If you don't have like a default value in here, you get poor validation because it's forcing you to select something and it looks at the initial value as the default. So if you have required on there, Dallas, Steve Smith, thanks for the raid of 7 folks. Awesome. We're just getting ready to finish up this machine learning example. We're binding machine learning to a Razor components form. So we have a select list in here. We have some trip payments, and then you can see I'm doing the key value pairs. So the key value pairs get bound to that select list. So that's where my thing like cash and credit is being bound. The vendors, Mellow Cab, and so on are being bound. And then we have our submit button that causes the submit function to operate. Our Dallas or Steve Smith, if you're in here, I want to hear your opinion on this little bit of code. This is something that I learned from Brian. Oh shoot, his name's escaping my mind for a second. I'm in code land, so I can't remember. Shoot, give me one sec. This is like failing me so hard right now. But it is a little bit of stuff that I learned from Dave Fancher. Why was I thinking Brian? Dave Fancher. Too many names coming in the chat room, I think. Streaming for about 2 hours and 20 minutes now. I'm starting to forget who I'm talking about. So good old Dave Fancher. Yeah, it wasn't Brian Laguna. So Dave Fancher has this really neat little snippet of code that I'm going to use here in a moment. So I have to take a taxi trip, and I have taxi form and taxi trip. I could use AutoMapper for something like this, but AutoMapper is a bit overkill for a single instance of mapping 2 objects together, right? And they're not necessarily one-to-ones anyway, and there's some business logic that might have to happen in this process. So AutoMapper is not the greatest choice. Let's see what's coming in the chat room real quick. How would it work in Blazor client side? It does not. So yeah, taxi service would have to be a REST API call, because at the current time, ML.NET does not work in anything but x86 and 64-bit. Therefore, it does not work on the mono runtime for WebAssembly, because WebAssembly is neither of those. So it'd be nice if they did add at least the ability to run model predictions, not train the model. I don't think that's necessary. But if they could at least get it to where you could run predictions on the client, it would be awesome. Just doesn't happen today. So anyway, I have these two items to map together. I have taxi trip form, and I need to map it to a taxi trip. They're similar yet different. So Dave has this really cool extension method called map. This is not like your typical select or map in JavaScript, because it's not operating on an array. It's operating on anything that you'd like. So I'm going to call trip, and then I'm going to call map on trip. So trip is my taxi form. I'm going to call map, and then I can pass in a function to map that tells map how to return the object I want. I want a taxi trip. So I'm going to new up a taxi trip, and then I'm going to manually map together the things that I need. Trip distance becomes a float. Passenger count is the same. We get the selected method of payment and map that to payment type. We get selected vendor, that's the vendor ID, and so on. Fare amount's going to be predicted for us. We'll go ahead and set that at a default of 0. And then that map returns a brand new taxi trip. And the next thing I want to do is I want to call the prediction service using the taxi trip that I just returned from my map. To do that, I can call map again and pass in taxi service predict fare. This is a function that accepts a taxi trip. You can possibly see it in the IntelliSense here, but the signature is predict fare, and then it takes a taxi trip as a parameter. Since I'm using map, the last thing I passed into my map is a taxi trip, so that parameter is implicit. I don't even have to specify it. Where you would expect maybe trip, arrow, whatever, trip like that, I don't even need that because it's implicit in the fact that it is extending a taxi trip, and it passes that in automatically. So what I can do is I mapped the form into the trip. Now I'm going to take the trip and map it into a prediction. I'm going to get the prediction out, which is a fare amount. So I can call dot fare amount on the prediction. So the type I just got back is taxi fare prediction. So I can say dot fare amount. Then I can call toString because I really want a string back, and set that to my estimated fare, which is a string, which is then displayed up here in my estimated fare. So kind of curious, like I know this is a lot of things I just went through. What do you guys think of the map operator? I think it's a pretty cool little piece of syntax that I can toss around and just map random things to one another. And my intent is pretty clear, really, what I'm doing. I want a string value, and what I'm ending with is a string value. This is what I want to get. And I do nothing in here but work with the values that I want until I get the string value back. This avoids me having to set a bunch of temporary values. Like I don't have to say, give me a taxi trip as my trip equals, and then do the mapping there and say new trip, yada, yada, yada. And then have another line that is my prediction, and so on, and have all these placeholder values that essentially do nothing but build up the necessities to create the estimated fare. So I can just create one pipeline and get what I need off the end of it. This is classic pipeline programming. So you want to see what this map extension method looks like. This is really cool. Again, this is Dave Fancher showed me this. And I'll link to his repo in the show notes, and I'll put it in the chat here as well. You would expect map maybe to be a lot of code or a little code. This is the beauty of it. Map is like nothing. Literally, there's almost no code here. So this is 110% syntactic sugar. So it's a static function because it's an extension method. It's just going to turn a type as a result. That's all it is, just t result. We call it map. Map takes a t source and returns a t result. So it's very generic. Takes anything, returns anything. It's extending t source, so it works on anything. It extends anything. The value or the parameter is called this, and then it takes a function, so it's a higher order function. It takes a function of t source and returns a t result, and that's called function. But unlike link, it doesn't operate on an array. This operates on a single item. And then it just pretty much just calls the function you're passing in. So this is all it does, is it just wraps a function call with a single parameter of the type that you're extending. So the parameter you're extending gets passed into the function that you declare. Really simple, easy thing. and it just allows you to keep chaining along whatever the heck you want. So pretty cool stuff. Select many. All link operators extend iQueryable, IEnumerable. So this extends anything, any type. So for example, I could have let's do string. I don't even have to do string really. What do I want to get back? Maybe I want to get back a string, but I can literally say hello here and say map and start mapping. So unlike link, I can't do that unless it's a IEnumerable. So very flexible, very simple piece of code. He has some other really cool ones in there too, like T, which will take and continue a chain with an output without affecting the variable in the chain. There's some other cool stuff in there. String is IEnumerable though? Okay. Let's see. One var num equals one.map. I can map an integer to something. So works on any type is the point. Works on any type, and I can do all kinds of stuff with it. Makes function calls implicit as long as they have one parameter. So cool stuff. So I just wanted to, I thought about using that in there just because it's not doing a whole lot of operations. What I'm focused on is getting this estimated fare back. And I thought that was a unique way to just kind of get in there and grab it and not have to worry about all the other gyrations that are happening. Focus on the output. So that's the little project. This is going to turn into something much bigger eventually. You can grab it on GitHub if you want to play with it. It is up on GitHub. I don't know if I posted this in the chat room already. I'll throw it in there just in case. And then Dave Fancher. Dave Fancher's got some really good talks if you see him at conferences. He's got some really good Pluralsight content. So look up Dave on Pluralsight, especially if you already have a Pluralsight account. Dave has some really amazing functional programming talks on there. He's written some books on it as well, but Pluralsight, definitely go look him up on Pluralsight. I'll pop this in the chat room too and put it in the show notes, but this is where I grabbed his extension method from. I think there's 3 in here. T is a cool one. Map is a cool one. When I've used when in some things that you guys have seen, but I use when in a little bit more limited format than he does. He uses it on a very broad scope of T, and I tend to use when in a very context specific way. So the T is good for like logging and things. So you'll see in this repo, he's got examples of how to use these things if you want to check it out. That's where map came from. So giving full credit to Mr. Fancher there for that fun little bit of code. So that's going to wrap things up for today. I hope that you guys enjoyed the stuff that we looked at, learned a few little tips and tricks, and got to see how to implement some of the new Blazor bits along with some ML.NET stuff. You're probably going to see more of those mashups coming from me soon. I've got the MVP Summit next week. I don't know if anybody out there is a Rhinosaurus Rex. You're welcome. If you guys are MVPs and you're going to be at the MVP Summit, come say hi. We've got all kinds of stuff going on while I'm out there. I can't really talk about any of the content we're going to see or when I get back, what I've seen, which kind of sucks. Because it's very NDA things that we're going to go see. But I will be in Seattle at the Microsoft campus all week next week. I don't know if I'll be able to make a show Friday or not yet. I get back on Thursday. I don't know if I'll have enough time to get back up to speed with work and things that I need to catch up on before I start another show. But if I don't, it won't be too much longer. I wish I could stream it too. Unfortunately, it is all under NDA, and somebody did try to do that last year and got booted out of the program. True story. It's happened more than once, unfortunately. People don't quite understand when they sign an NDA and see the words NDA everywhere that they shouldn't stream these things to coworkers and or live internet broadcasts, which is kind of mind-boggling, but it did happen. Let's see. Announcements. I have some announcements before I go, so hopefully a few of you are still sticking around. I have some places I'm going to be streaming. While I cannot stream from the MVP Summit, I am going to be at the Visual Studio launch attendee party. I don't know if I have a link for this yet. Virtual attendee party is what it's called. It will be on Twitch. Here we go. Let's see if it is in here. So the Visual Studio 2019 is set for April 2nd. That's all public knowledge. There is going to be a virtual attendee party on Twitch, which will be shown on the Code Party channel. So Code Party, let's see if I can do this in the chat room. Code Party. Nope, it's not coming up in my channel here. Let's do this. Let's try Twitch TV Code Party. There we go. Yeah, don't play. That's not what I want to happen. Can't cross the streams. I learned that the hard way. Code Party is where that should take place if you want to follow that channel. It'll probably be syndicated on the Visual Studio channel as well. But Code Party is where it should be held, at least from what I understand. I will be on that show. So I will be on there talking about Razor components, and possibly a little bit of Blazor and whatnot. Not sure everything that entails yet, but we'll be covering the latest and greatest news from the Visual Studio 2019 launch, and whatever new bits are shipping then we'll be talking about. So please tune into that on April 2nd. Let's see, what else do we have? We will also be giving away a, when I say we, I mean Progress Telerik will be giving away a Surface Go during that broadcast. So there's going to be a contest to win that Surface Go. So if you want to tune in for that reason, come along and see if you can win a Surface Go. I will be at Stir Trek in Columbus, Ohio, talking about WebAssembly on April 26th. So looking forward to that. Stir Trek is one of my favorite events, and I'll also be at Codestock. Don't have a session there, but I will be there. So if you're going to Codestock, shoot me a message. I think that's everything I got for now. We'll keep bringing feedback for the Telerik UI for Blazor. See you guys in the Gitter channel, and you can find my show notes on my website at itcharbonneau.com. I'll try to get those up very shortly, especially before I start packing for my trip to Seattle. I'll try to get those up there. It'll have references to all the GitHub projects and stuff that you guys saw today. So thanks again, folks, for joining me, and we'll see you again possibly next week, if not the following week for sure. Thanks a lot, Blazor fans. Look forward to talking to you guys again. Have a good weekend.